The night had fallen heavy over the small suburban town, the kind of night that weighed on a man's shoulders and reminded him of everything he had lost. Inside a quiet house on the corner of Maplewood Drive, a man named David Miller sat alone, his elbows resting on his knees, a framed photograph clutched between trembling hands. The picture was worn, its edges frayed from too many nights spent tracing the outlines of smiling faces. In it were the three people who had once been his entire world: his wife Sarah, and their two children, Emily and Jacob. They were frozen in time, their grins wide, their eyes filled with light. A light David hadn't seen in years. He blinked hard, but the tears still fell, sliding down his cheeks and dripping onto the glass of the frame. His chest rose and fell in uneven shudders as he whispered the same words he had spoken nearly every night for 3 years. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you." The silence of the house pressed in on him, cruel and suffocating. Every room held echoes of laughter that no longer existed. Every corner was a reminder of what once was. The smell of Sarah's perfume had faded long ago, but sometimes, when the night was heavy like this, he swore he could still sense it in the air. David hadn't lived since that night. He had merely survived. 3 years ago, the phone rang while he was at work. An officer's voice had told him his family had been in a car accident. He remembered rushing to the hospital, his heart pounding with denial, clinging to a desperate hope that somehow it wasn't true. But the words had landed like knives. Your wife didn't make it. Your children, they didn't survive either. The world had ended for David Miller in that single breath. From that night forward, he had stopped being a father, stopped being a husband, stopped being a man. He had become a shell, wandering from day to day in an empty house, haunted by memories and the cruel silence of absence. The car in the driveway. That night, something unusual stirred him from his grief. It started as a distant hum, low, steady, growing louder. David frowned and wiped his eyes. No one came here. He hadn't had a visitor in months. He stood slowly, his bones aching with the weight of despair, and walked toward the window. Headlights. A car turned into his driveway, its engine humming gently before shutting off. David's brows knitted together. Who could it be? For a long moment, he didn't move. His heart pounded in his chest, thumping against his ribs like a drum. Finally, he shuffled toward the front door. His hand hovered over the knob, hesitation running through him. The silence beyond the door felt alive, waiting. With a deep breath, he turned the knob and pulled the door open. And froze. Flushed the impossible sight. Under the glow of the street lamp stood a car. In the driver's seat was a woman, her face lit softly by the dashboard lights. His breath caught in his throat. She looked so much like Sarah that his knees nearly buckled. But it wasn't just her. 2 small faces pressed against the rear window. A boy and a girl. Their eyes wide, their mouths open as though they were calling out to him. And then, he heard it. A voice that tore through him like thunder breaking a storm. "Daddy." David staggered back a step, his body trembling, his mind screaming no, this can't be real. His throat went dry, and his chest heaved with uneven breaths. The car door opened. 2 children tumbled out, their feet hitting the driveway as they ran toward him. Child girl the embrace. The little girl reached him first. She launched herself into his arms, her small body colliding with his chest, and he felt her warmth, real life, against him. "Daddy, it's me, it's Emily," she cried, her voice breaking with joy. Hot tears spilled down David's cheeks as he clutched her tightly, terrified that if he let go, she might vanish like smoke. Then came the boy, Jacob, his little arms wrapped tightly around David's waist as he pressed his face against his father's jacket. "I missed you, Daddy." David dropped to his knees on the porch, pulling both children close, his sobs breaking into the night. "No, no, it can't be. I buried you. I buried you both." But they were real. Their hair smelled of fresh air. Their hearts pounded against his chest. They were not ghosts. Woman the woman. And then, the woman stepped out of the car. David looked up, still holding his children, his eyes locking onto her. For a second, his heart betrayed him. "Sarah," he whispered. The woman shook her head, her eyes shimmering with tears. "No, David, my name is Anna." He blinked. Anna. It hit him suddenly. Sarah's sister. He hadn't seen her in years. Anna's voice trembled. "I've brought them home." The porch light washed everyone in a soft amber glow as if the house itself were trying to remember how to be warm. David stood shakily, one arm still around Emily, the other around Jacob, and stared at Anna like a man who had just stepped out of a cave into daylight. "I don't understand," he rasped. I was told they were gone." Anna nodded slowly, as if every word required careful stepping through a minefield of memories. "I know," she said. "And I'm sorry, for how long it took. For everything that got twisted. But they're here now, David. They're yours." The word yours cracked something open inside him. For 3 years he had been a haunted house. Now, with one word, windows flew open and air rushed in. "Come inside," he whispered. "Please, all of you." He ushered them in, hands trembling on the doorknob as though it might vanish. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and cedar. He had kept the place tidy like a guard on duty, as if a spotless home could hold the ghosts in place. Family photos lined the wall. Sarah laughing with her head thrown back, Emily wearing a crooked paper crown, Jacob asleep on David's chest. Anna paused beneath one, her gaze softening. "You kept them up," she murmured. "I couldn't take them down," David said. Taking them down felt like burying them twice. They moved into the living room. The couch had an indentation where David always sat. The coffee table bore thin rings from mugs set down during long, sleepless nights. Emily touched the mantel where a small ceramic owl sat, the one she had painted at the fair the summer before the accident. Her finger traced the clumsy yellow wing. "You still have Hootie," she breathed, smiling like a sunrise that had forgotten how to happen. "Every day," David said hoarsely. "I dusted him. I told him good night." He tried to laugh. It came out like a gasp. Jacob hovered by the doorway, his eyes scanning the room as if collecting proof after proof that this place was real, that he had not imagined the front walk, the door, the pictures. His hand slipped into David's. It fit like it had when Jacob was 3, small, trusting, world-anchoring. Anna lingered near the arm of the couch, wringing her fingers, uncertain where to put the weight of herself. David gestured toward the recliner. "Sit, please. Do you want water?" "Something hot." "Water's fine," she said. David moved toward the kitchen, then stopped, turning back. "No," he said abruptly. "I'm not leaving you again." He guided them all toward the table instead, at the edge of the open kitchen. He pulled out chairs with a frantic gentleness, the way you handle porcelain you've already dropped once. They sat. For a fragile minute the house listened. "Tell me," David said. "All of it." Anna exhaled, steadying herself. "The accident happened at dusk," she began, voice thin at the edges. It had just started raining. Sarah was driving the kids home from the library. You know how she hated driving in the rain, but she said the kids were singing along to the radio and it made her brave. Anna's mouth trembled into a shadow of a smile. They were at that red light by the old gas station when a pickup ran it. Hit them hard, on the passenger side. "God," David whispered, eyes shut. His hand found the table's edge. People from the diner ran out. An EMT was off duty and happened to be there. They got the kids out quickly. Emily had a broken arm, a concussion. Jacob, bruised ribs, stitches, but alive. Sarah was unconscious. She kept trying to say your name. They told me, but Anna swallowed. At the hospital they took her straight into surgery. David's mind yanked him back into the sterile hallway he had lived in for a lifetime that first night, to fluorescent lights humming like insects, to the way the doctor's mouth had formed the words didn't make it. He could still feel his knees hit tile. "I was out of town that week," Anna continued. "I flew in as soon as I got the call. By the time I reached the hospital, a woman from Child Protective Services was already in the room with the kids. Our cousin Lorraine was there too." David's eyes snapped open. "Lorraine." Anna nodded, shame darkening her cheeks as if the mere name cast a shadow. "She'd shown up early, said she was handling the family's affairs. You know how she is, loud, certain, persuasive. She kept telling everyone you were unfit. Said you had a drinking problem, that you were barely keeping your job, that you were violent." David flinched as if slapped. "What? I know," Anna said quickly. None of it was true. But the hospital social worker heard enough conflicting stories that she held the kids for observation. Lorraine filed for temporary guardianship, said she was the only stable relative. She had paperwork ready, like she'd been waiting. "But I was there," David said. "I was there. I signed forms. He stopped. Memories unraveled. The staff had moved him from window to window, had spoken to him in calming tones like he was a storm about to break. Someone had asked him to sit. Someone else had said they'd circle back. He had been given pamphlets for grief counseling. Had there been a page to sign about the children? A pen pressed into his hand. He saw his signature, messy with shock, on a line he hadn't read. "They told you." Anna's voice softened with a careful pity. "They told you the children didn't make it, didn't they?" David nodded, something inside him roaring silent. "An officer. A doctor. I don't even know anymore." The night split open. Anna reached across the table, her hand hovering before resting lightly on his sleeve. "By the time I cornered the social worker and insisted I could take the kids, Lorraine had already moved them. She said she'd drive them to a foster care evaluation center. Instead she took them across state lines." "What?" David's chair scraped as he half stood. "She kidnapped them. She called it family placement," Anna said bitterly. "Said you'd signed a release. It took me months, to track her down. She'd changed phone numbers, addresses. She told Emily and Jacob that their father didn't want them. That you had chosen to forget. Emily made a tiny sound like a bird hitting glass. David turned to her immediately. Her eyes were wet, frightened, but fierce. "I never believed it," she said. "Not really. Some nights I would dream you were coming down the road. I'd listen for your footsteps. I tried to find you," Jacob blurted, words tumbling. "I used Aunt Lorraine's old laptop. I looked up David Miller Maplewood, but there are, like, a million David Millers. And she caught me and took the laptop and said I was being ungrateful and his voice snagged. He blinked hard. David drew Jacob in, warm palm at the back of his head. "You did nothing wrong," he murmured. "None of this was you." Anna's mouth tightened. Lorraine had debts. Collectors. She took state checks to care for the kids and used them to float her mess. She wasn't kind. Emily's fingers clutched the hem of her shirt. "She made us eat in the garage when her friends came," she said, eyes fixed on the table. "Said we were too loud." David inhaled and the breath tasted like rust. "I'm going to fix this," he said, voice low, steadying on an anchor he hadn't felt in years. "I'm going to make it right." Anna nodded. "I know. That's why we're here." She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin folder, edges bent from being handled. "I started documenting everything last year. Photos, dates, statements from neighbors. I went to a legal clinic on weekends. I learned the language. I learned how to fight for them the way Sarah would have wanted." David took the folder like a chalice. The first page was a picture of Emily and Jacob in a small backyard, faces turned toward the sun but not smiling, as though light itself had rules they weren't allowed to break. Another page held notes. Missed school days, unexplained bruises fell off the porch, Lorraine had claimed. There were receipts that didn't match grocery lists, a landlord's statement about cash exchanges at odd hours. "You did all this," David whispered. Anna shrugged. "Sarah would have done it for me," she said. "Besides, loving them kept me alive too." David's eyes filled again, but there was a different temperature to the tears now, not just grief, but gratitude braided with a quiet awe. From the doorway to the hall, a faint something stirred, a feeling more than a sound. It took David a second to realize what it was. The house, noticing. The way rooms you love begin to hold their breath in wonder when laughter moves through them again. "Do you want to see your room?" he asked the kids, voice brightening with a sudden, shy hope. "I mean, it's the same as it was. I never had the courage to pack anything away. There might be dust bunnies the size of cats, but..." "Yes," Emily said, already standing, smile stretching wide, fragile and fearless. Jacob nodded, cheeks lifting. They moved down the hallway together. David's hand hovered over the light switch of the first door on the left. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." They breathed. The light flicked on and childhood poured out. The walls were pale blue with glow in the dark stars, a few had fallen and lay like tiny comets on the dresser. The twin beds wore quilts Sarah's mother had sewn, one with rockets, the other with wild horses. A shelf held picture books with frayed spines. On the desk sat a jar of pencils, tips long ago sharpened and waiting like tiny sentries. Emily ran to the window and touched the unicorn sticker she had once insisted belonged right there, "So the moon can find us." Jacob opened his closet and laughed at a too small superhero cape. He draped it around his shoulders anyway. "It still works," he announced. David stood in the doorway, unable to move. The room vibrated with the exact pitch of joy he had prayed for in countless sleepless hours. He pressed his knuckles against his lips, steadying. "Can we stay?" Emily asked, tentative. "You never left," David said, and the truth of it filled the room like light. They explored the house room by room as if mapping a newly rediscovered country. The kitchen where pancake batter had once left constellations on the ceiling. The laundry room that still smelled, faintly, like summer grass and detergent. The garage with its old bicycles lined up like faithful dogs. At the pantry, Emily found a jar of rainbow sprinkles. "You kept them," she whispered. "I kept everything," David said, smiling. "In case you were hungry." Back in the kitchen, David reached for a skillet. "It's late," he said, "but do you want breakfast for dinner?" "Pancakes. With," he lifted the jar, "emergency sprinkles." The children gasped like this was a magic trick. "Yes." He measured flour with hands that remembered what they had forgotten. He stirred gently because Sarah had always said the trick was not to overmix. The first pancake sizzled and puffed, edges browning. Jacob hovered with a wooden spatula. Emily set the table with a seriousness that made Anna blink back tears. Anna watched, arms crossed lightly, an island of exhaustion and relief. When David glanced up, she looked away, embarrassed by the open tenderness in his eyes. "You should sit," he said. "You look like you've run 1,000 miles. "I feel like it," she admitted, pulling a chair. "Lorraine's been gone the last 2 days. New boyfriend, new drama." "I took the chance." David poured another pancake, the batter making a soft laugh as it hit the skillet. "Is it safe for you too? She doesn't know where we are. I turned off location sharing on the kids' tablets months ago, got a new phone last week." She lifted her chin. "I've got a friend at the clinic who can file an emergency petition first thing in the morning. We'll present everything. Once the court hears your side." She looked at him with the first unbroken confidence of the night. "You'll get them back. Get them back." The words entered him like oxygen after a long dive. He plated pancakes, and for the first time in 3 years, his hands didn't shake. They ate. Syrup pooling like small lakes, sprinkles scattering like confetti. Jacob told a joke that didn't land and then laughed at his own laughter until Emily laughed too. Anna took small bites as if teaching her body how to be calm again. David listened to the music of forks against plates and knew he could live on it forever. After dinner, he tucked the kids into their old beds. It felt ceremonial, like returning crowns to rightful rulers. He read them goodnight moon in a voice that kept breaking on the easy rhymes. When he finished, Emily reached up and touched his face. "We prayed for you," she said. "Every night. I heard you," he whispered. "Even when I didn't know I was hearing." Lights dimmed. Doors left a crack open. The house exhaled. In the hallway, Anna leaned against the wall, eyes closed. David approached with a glass of water. She accepted it with a tired smile. "You were always good at good nights," she said softly. "Sarah used to tease that the kids would pretend to be asleep just to hear your voice." A warmth that had nothing to do with the thermostat rose in his chest. He sipped his own water and stared at the family photo above the hall table. Sarah holding Emily, David holding Jacob, everyone leaning into everyone. "She was the glue," he said. "I was the tape." Anna laughed under her breath. "You were the safe place." Her smile faded, turned solemn. "She wrote you a letter." David's head snapped. "What?" Anna reached into her bag again and pulled out a single sealed envelope, worn at the corners from being carried. His name stretched across it in Sarah's round hand. "I didn't know if I should give it to you tonight," Anna said, voice trembling. It was in the box she kept in her closet. She wrote it the week Emily started kindergarten. In case of emergency, she'd said. We all joked she was dramatic. Anna's throat tightened. Turns out she was brave. David's fingers hovered over the seal, reverent, afraid. He imagined Sarah at the kitchen table, hair up, a mug of chamomile at her elbow, writing words she hoped no one would ever need. He broke the seal carefully and unfolded the letter. "My love," it began. He sat down hard on the hallway bench. "If you're reading this, life did something terrible. I'm angry at it for taking any of our time. But I'm not angry at you. Promise me you won't be angry at you either. You're a good man, David. You are the kind of father children dream up and hope exists." David pressed the page to his chest and closed his eyes. "If I am gone, find Anna. She will be scared, but she will be strong. She knows where the extra keys are and how to make pancakes without burning the first one I never learned. She will walk with you through anything because she is my heart's twin. Trust her. Let her help. And if the world tries to tell you lies about who you are, remember I know the truth and the kids know the truth. You are home. Tell them the story about the time I tried to adopt the stray cat that turned out to belong to a biker gang, yes, really, and how you talked our way out with nothing but that smile. Tell them I loved them the way sunlight loves a window, through and through. Tell them I will meet them in every warm patch on the rug. I will meet you in every blue sky morning. Don't stop singing. Don't stop laughing at your own bad jokes. Don't stop being the safe place. The world will need you even more now. I love you more than all the apples on all the trees we ever drove past. Sarah." When he finished, the silence around them seemed full and holy. Anna wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. "She was right," she said. "About you. About everything." David nodded, unable to speak. From the children's room came the soft, rhythmic breathing that had lived in his bones once and then went missing for years. He tucked the letter back into its envelope, smoothed the crease, and placed it on the mantel beneath Sarah's photo like a lighthouse finally lit. "Stay," he told Anna, surprising himself. "In the guest room. At least tonight. You look like you might fall over." "I will," she said, almost apologetically. "I wasn't sure if." She gestured toward the door, toward all the complicated years. "Thank you. Thank you." They cleaned dishes shoulder to shoulder in an easy quiet that felt like stepping into a familiar river. Somewhere in the middle of drying a plate, Anna swayed slightly. David caught the plate and set it down. "Bed," he ordered gently. She laughed, surrendered. Before she disappeared down the hall, she turned. "There's one more thing," she said. "Lorraine will notice by morning. She'll come. She'll make noise. She always does. But this time you won't be alone." David straightened, something iron settling in his spine. "Let her come," he said. After the house went still, David wandered from room to room the way you do in a museum you love, slowly, with your hands behind your back, reading plaques that only you can see. He stood in the doorway of the children's room and watched the rise and fall of two blankets, the moonlight laying soft square hands on the floor. He memorized the sound. He knelt and kissed foreheads he'd only kissed in dreams for so long. On his way back to the living room, He paused at the front door. Outside, the street was a ribbon of silver. The car sat like a resting animal, still warm. He put his palm against the wood of the door and whispered a thank you. To God, to chance, to Anna's stubborn courage, to Sarah's letter, to his own heart for not giving up even when it believed it had. Sleep came like a gentle tide that night, pulling him into a place where Sarah laughed from the next room and the kids called, "Dad, come see." He let himself go, not drowning this time, but floating. Morning arrived gold and soft. Pancakes again, because the kids declared a new rule: 2 breakfasts on reunion weekend. David made them without burning the first one. "I'm a new man," he announced, and Jacob replied, "You're our man," and David had to look away and cough like he had syrup in his throat. They were halfway through second helpings when tires crunched in the driveway. All 3 of them looked up. Anna set down her fork. "Showtime," she murmured. Through the front window, a red SUV pulled up crooked, nose too close to the flower bed David never had the heart to replant. The driver's door flew open and Lorraine emerged in a storm of perfume and indignation. She was wearing sunglasses though the sun hadn't reached that side of the street yet. She marched to the porch like it owed her money and pounded the door before David could stand. He opened it calmly. The woman in front of him was both stranger and story he knew by heart. Sharp jacket, sharper smile, a mouth built for courtroom objections even when no judge was present. "There you are," she announced, pushing past him without invitation. "You've made a very big mistake." "Good morning to you too, Lorraine," Anna said from the dining room, voice low and steady. Not a tremor. Lorraine paused, calculating. Then she saw the children. "Sweethearts," she cooed, switching registers like a radio dial. "Look at you. Auntie's been worried sick." Emily pressed closer to David. Jacob's jaw set. "Stop," David said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The word rang with a bell's clean certainty. "You don't speak to them like that in this house." "This house." Lorraine laughed like a cracked plate. "That implies legality you don't have. You signed away guardianship. I have documented custody. Hand them over now, and I won't press charges for kidnapping." Anna stepped forward, a folder in her hand like a shield. "You won't press charges because you can't," she said crisply. "And because in about 2 hours, Judge Marisol Rendon will receive an emergency petition with exhibits a through-end detailing welfare fraud, medical neglect, educational interference, and interstate custodial interference during a temporary placement you obtained under false pretenses." Lorraine's sunglasses came off. Her eyes were cold coins. That's so," Anna replied. David moved to stand between Lorraine and the children without even thinking. The stance felt ancestral. "They're not going with you," he said. "Not now. Not ever. Sit down if you'd like coffee. Otherwise, leave." For a split second, something mean and frightened flickered across Lorraine's face, the kind of look people wear when a long con collapses under a single honest sentence. She recovered quickly, lips twisting. "You think you've won because you have breakfast food and righteous speeches," she sneered. "But the world runs on paperwork and power. Today," Anna said, "it runs on truth." She pulled out her phone and tapped. "You're on speaker with Attorney Jasper Liu from the Family Advocacy Clinic. Please repeat your last line for the record." Lorraine stared. Somewhere in the fog of her certainty, a klaxon sounded. She turned on her heel, heels clacking a frantic rhythm, and strode out. The SUV screamed in reverse, tires spitting gravel like curses. Then she was gone, leaving the air ringing and the flowers trembling. David closed the door and leaned his forehead against it, giddy with the small, perfect relief of a hurdle cleared. The kids cheered. Anna allowed herself one small, victorious fist pump. "Judge at 10, she said, collecting folders, breathing deep. "We tell your story. We tell theirs. We tell Sarah's." David nodded. He went to the mantel and touched the letter. "We tell the truth," he said. He dressed the kids in clothes he hadn't imagined he would ever lay out again. Jacob in the button-down with tiny sailboats, Emily in the blue dress with pockets big enough for seashells and bravery. He combed hair with a tenderness that bordered on prayer. He packed snacks because he remembered hungry children in courtrooms, and because dads pack snacks even when lawyers don't ask them to. On the way out, he paused in the doorway of what had been Sarah's small studio, the room where her easel still stood, canvas blank, jars of brushes lined like soldiers waiting for orders that never came. He let his fingers rest on the stool. "Walk with us," he whispered. They drove downtown, Anna at the wheel, David in the passenger seat, the kids in the back humming a made-up song about pancakes and judges and heroes who wear capes you can't always see. The courthouse steps felt like a mountain. David climbed anyway. Inside, the waiting area buzzed with the fluorescent hum of administrative hope. Attorney Jasper Lew met them by the water fountain. Young, composed, tie slightly crooked like he'd been running since dawn. "Mr. Miller," he said, shaking David's hand. His grip was solid. "I've reviewed Ms. Parker's materials." He nodded respectfully toward Anna. "It's formidable. We'll file for immediate placement with you pending a full hearing." "Thank you," David said, and the word carried every sleepless night, every whisper to an empty room, every birthday candle blown out alone. When their case number flashed, they entered a small courtroom where sunlight fell across polished wood like a blessing. Judge Rendon peered over reading glasses, her expression one David recognized from teachers who demanded truth like homework. The hearing itself was both 5 minutes and 5 centuries. Jasper presented the petition. Anna testified with careful detail, voice steady even when her hands shook. David spoke last. He did not tell a story built to win. He told the one he had lived. "I was told my children died," he said simply. "For 3 years, I woke up and believed it before breakfast, after lunch, and in the middle of the night. Today I learned I was not just a widower. I was a father all along. Your Honor, I don't know the legal words like everyone else here. I only know what I owe them now. Home, safety, a life with as much light as we can find. Please let me start paying that debt." Judge Rendon studied him for a long breath that stretched the length of the world. Then she nodded once, decisive. "Temporary placement with Mr. Miller is granted pending full review," she said. "Visitation for Ms. Lorraine Parker is suspended until further evaluation. Protective order for the children and petitioners is approved. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks." Jacob grabbed Emily's hand so hard she yelped and then laughed. Anna stared at the ceiling like it had spoken directly to her. Jasper exhaled in a way that made his tie straighten by itself. Outside on the courthouse steps, the sky had shrugged on a brighter blue. Reporters were not waiting because sometimes, miraculously, goodness happens without cameras. The kids ran down the stairs and then back up just to feel their legs exist. David stood half a step behind them, one palm on each small shoulder, as if calibrating himself to the exact distance where love becomes guardianship and guardianship becomes love again. They celebrated the only way that made sense. Paper cups of chocolate milkshakes from the diner where Sarah had once convinced David to dance between booths because a Motown song came on and life was too short for pretending you didn't know how to be silly. The waitress, gray-haired and soft-eyed, set extra cherries on the napkin, because we're rooting for you, she whispered, as if the town had a secret group chat about miracles. In the booth, Anna finally let the exhaustion show. She leaned back, eyes fluttering closed. I'm not sure I've slept longer than 3 hours in months, she confessed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lorraine changing locks. Sleep tonight, David said. Sleep without listening for keys. They drove home with the windows cracked, spring air turning the edges of everything kind. At a stoplight, David caught his reflection in the side mirror. Same face, same eyes, but arranged differently now, like someone had opened a window inside and rearranged the furniture into something that looked like living. At the house, the neighborhood seemed to sense the change. Mr. Patel from 2 doors down lifted a hand in a tentative wave. He hadn't done that in years, afraid of brushing against grief and leaving a smudge. Good to see you, David, he called. Good to see all of you. David waved back, throat thick. Good to be seen, he managed. They spent the afternoon making the kind of mess that counts as therapy, pulling sheets off beds, airing blankets on the line, letting sunlight do the work of 10,000 counselors. Emily found her old shoebox of treasures, ticket stubs, seashells, a friendship bracelet half finished, and announced the house would be taking applications for new memories effective immediately. Jacob fixed the squeak on the screen door with a screwdriver and the kind of solemn pride that makes you want to salute small boys. In the late afternoon, they walked to the park. David pushed the swings like he used to, learning again the rhythm of letting go and catching back. On the bench, Anna watched with quiet eyes. Sarah would be happy, she said. She is, David replied, and realized he believed it. As evening melted in, they headed home in the blue hour, that generous space where day and night hold hands. David unlocked the front door and paused, feeling the vibration of feet headed toward the kitchen, the bathroom, the couch. He turned to the 3 people on the porch. 2 small, 1 steady, and cleared his throat. I know it's just 1 piece of paper today, he said. There's more ahead. Hearings, questions. But tonight, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to call this home. Emily hugged him exactly where it hurts in the best way. We already did, she said into his shirt. They ate spaghetti for dinner because it was what they had and because Joy doesn't mind tomato sauce on the table. They played a board game missing 3 pieces and made up rules for the gaps. David tucked them in again, then stood in the dark listening to the soft discordant symphony of a household where not everything matches yet everything belongs. In the living room, Anna sat cross-legged on the rug, reading Sarah's letter again by lamplight. She looked up as David entered. You know, she said, for years I kept hearing Sarah's voice saying go to him. I told myself it was my imagination. Turns out it was courage learning my name. David lowered himself onto the rug opposite her. Outside, a train mourned faintly in the distance. Inside, the clock ticked like a heartbeat finally measured. Thank you for answering, he said. For all of us. Anna folded the letter, slid it back into its envelope, and placed it gently on the coffee table. Tomorrow we'll start the boring parts. Phone calls, school transfers, therapy appointments. Boring is good. Boring means safe. She smiled. But tonight, I think we get to just be. They sat there in the ordinary miracle of a living room with mismatched pillows and a stain on the carpet shaped like Nebraska, saying small things that meant enormous ones. Do you remember the summer with the fireworks? And Sarah's lasagna always fell in the middle. And Jacob still sleeps with his feet uncovered. The lamp cast a warm circle of light around them, and for a while the world outside their circle could manage itself. When the night had moved to the part where even the crickets forgot their lyrics, David stood and offered Anna a hand up. She took it. Their palms met, not like a promise the future couldn't keep, but like two people acknowledging the weather and deciding to walk anyway. "Good night," he said. "Sleep without listening for keys." "Good night," she echoed. "Wake without reaching for ghosts." He did, and in the morning, the doorbell rang again. This time, when he opened the door, he didn't freeze. He smiled. The morning sun streamed through the front window, golden rays bouncing off the hardwood floor. For the first time in 3 years, the house was alive with sound. Chairs scraping, cereal bowls clinking, Jacob humming some tune only he understood. Emily giggled as she tried to braid her own hair in the reflection of the toaster. Anna moved quietly, steady but weary, a soldier returning from a long campaign. The doorbell rang again. David wiped his hands on a dish towel and walked to the door, his chest steady instead of hollow. He opened it to find a man in a crisp blue uniform holding a clipboard. The badge on his shirt read, "Family Court Services." "Mr. Miller?" the man asked. David nodded. "I'm here to verify placement of the children." His eyes softened as Emily peeked around the corner, Jacob right behind her. "May I come in? House home inspection." The inspector walked through each room carefully, making notes on his clipboard. He checked the pantry, the bathroom, the bedrooms. In Jacob's room, the superhero cape still lay across the bed. In Emily's, the unicorn sticker caught the sunlight just right, glowing faintly. David felt exposed, every corner of his life examined. But instead of shame, he felt pride. Pride that the house had waited, that he had waited. "Do the children feel safe here?" the inspector asked gently, crouching down to meet their eyes. "Yes," Emily said quickly, clutching her father's hand. "It feels like home again." Jacob added, "It smells like pancakes." The inspector smiled. "That's a good sign." He made a final note, closed the clipboard, and stood. "We'll file this report today. Mr. Miller, Ms. Parker, you're doing the right thing." David exhaled slowly, relief rippling through him. "Thank you," he said, the words carrying 3 years of silence. Books school. Later that week, David and Anna took the children back to their old elementary school. The halls smelled of pencil shavings and floor wax, familiar and foreign at once. Teachers turned, surprised, whispers spreading down the corridor like a spark racing through dry leaves. The principal, Mrs. Connors, rushed forward. Her eyes widened at the sight of the children. "My God! We thought." She stopped herself, crouched, and opened her arms. Emily and Jacob ran into them. "We're back," Emily whispered into her shoulder. Mrs. Connors stood, her gaze sharp on David. They belong here. We'll handle whatever paperwork we need to. Don't worry. That afternoon, the children sat at desks that had been waiting for them. Jacob scribbled superheroes in the margins of his math sheet. Emily raised her hand during reading time. David, watching through the small window in the door, let himself cry quietly in the hallway. Mirror therapy. Part of the court's order required counseling for the children and for David. At first, the idea terrified him, pouring his soul out to a stranger. But when he sat across from Dr. Ramirez, a calm woman with silver hair and kind eyes, something cracked open. I thought they were gone, he said simply. For 3 years, I lived in a graveyard that wasn't real. Dr. Ramirez nodded. And now they're back. That joy must come with its own grief too. David frowned. Grief. They're here. I don't need grief anymore. She leaned forward. Grief isn't only about loss. It's also about the years stolen, the birthdays you missed, the lullabies you didn't get to sing. It's about forgiving yourself for something that was never your fault. The words lodged deep. That night, David read Sarah's letter again and whispered into the darkness, I forgive me. Love letter. Another letter. One evening, Anna came into the living room carrying a shoebox. I wasn't sure when to show you this, she said. Sarah gave it to me before Emily was born. She told me it was for someday. Inside were sealed envelopes, each with a name. One said, Emily, open when you're 10. Another said, Jacob, open on your graduation day. And one, tucked at the bottom, read simply, David, when you feel ready. His hands shook as he opened it. My love, it began, just like the first. If this finds you years after I am gone, I want you to know I believed in your strength even on days you didn't. Raise them with laughter. Teach them kindness before arithmetic. Let them climb trees. Let them scrape knees. And when they ask about me, don't let your voice break. Tell them I was the luckiest woman alive because of you. David pressed the letter to his chest. The kids crawled onto the couch beside him. Emily asked softly, what did Mom say? He pulled them close. She said we're going to be okay. Balance scale. Lorraine's last move. Lorraine did not give up quietly. 2 weeks later, she stormed into the courtroom again, papers clutched like weapons. She accused David of manipulation, of fraud, of being unfit. But this time, the judge wasn't fooled. Evidence from Anna's folder, testimony from teachers, neighbors, and even Drive. Ramirez painted a clear picture. The judge's gavel came down. Full custody to David Miller. Lorraine Parker is barred from unsupervised contact. Case closed. Lorraine's face hardened, but the fight drained from her shoulders. She turned on her heel and walked out, her heels echoing in defeat. David exhaled, pulling Emily and Jacob into his arms. It's over, he whispered. We're free. Sunrise epilogue. A house alive again. Weeks later, the Miller home had transformed. Laughter spilled from the windows. Shoes piled messily by the door. The fridge bore drawings in bright crayon colors. A family of 4, standing beneath the yellow sun. One night, David tucked Emily and Jacob into bed and lingered by the doorway. Good night, he whispered. Emily murmured, Good night, Daddy. Sweet dreams. Jacob added, Don't forget to dream of pancakes. David chuckled, closing the door gently. In the living room, Anna sat with a cup of tea, reading one of Sarah's old novels. David joined her on the couch, their shoulders brushing lightly. Silence settled. Warm, not empty. For the first time in years, David believed in tomorrow. Not because pain was gone, but because love had returned. The house, once a tomb, was now alive, alive with voices, with second chances, with the miracle of being found. And David knew that when Sarah looked down, she would smile and whisper, "You kept the safe place." That evening, after the children had drifted into soft, even breathing, David found himself unable to sleep. The house was finally alive again, yet his heart kept tugging him toward the past. He poured himself a glass of water, sat on the couch in the quiet living room, and stared at the photos on the mantel. One in particular caught his eyes, a picture of Sarah and him from their first summer together. She wore that green sundress she loved, the one with tiny daisies printed across the fabric. Her hair blew wild in the wind, and David's arms circled her waist protectively, as though even then he'd known she was his whole world. He closed his eyes, and the memory unfolded. Sunflower flashback. The day they met. It had been a July afternoon at the farmer's market, sunlight spilling like honey across crowded stalls. David had been there reluctantly, helping his mother carry groceries. He was tired, restless, a young man with little direction. And then he saw her. Sarah stood at a stall of sunflowers, holding one up to her face as though deciding if it could make her laugh. The flower nearly covered her, but he caught the curve of her smile. She glanced sideways, caught him staring, and instead of looking away, she held his gaze. "Do you think this one looks cheerful enough?" she asked, stepping closer. David, startled, nearly dropped the bag of apples he was holding. "Cheerful enough for what?" "For my kitchen table," she said with a shrug. "If flowers can't be cheerful, what's the point?" He laughed, awkward and genuine. "Then I'd say that one looks like it just heard a funny joke." Her smile widened. Good answer. From that moment, it was as if gravity itself had been rewritten. They walked the aisles together, talking about music, food, the silly quirks of strangers they passed. He carried her sunflowers. She teased him for nearly dropping the apples twice. By the end of the afternoon, David knew he'd met the girl who would someday turn his house into a home. Fallen leaf flashback. The proposal. Years later, under an autumn canopy of golden leaves, David had knelt on one knee with shaking hands. Sarah had laughed, tears spilling from her eyes as she said yes before he could even finish asking. They had been broke, barely affording rent, but rich in laughter. That night, they celebrated with cheap champagne and pizza on the floor of their tiny apartment. Sarah had leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, whispering, "Promise me we'll never stop finding joy in small things." "I promise," he had said. And he meant it. Glowing star back to the present. The memories flooded him now, painful but precious. He realized that Sarah hadn't just left him letters. She had left him a legacy of love, of laughter, of resilience. And that legacy now lived in Emily's fiery spirit and Jacob's quiet strength. He whispered into the stillness, "I'll keep the promise, Sarah. Every small joy, I'll keep it alive." School confrontation. 2 weeks later, David experienced a test of that promise. When he arrived at the school for pickup, A woman was standing near the fence, arms folded, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Lorraine. David stiffened instantly, instincts sharp. But before he could approach, Jacob spotted her. His face drained of color. "Dad, she's here." Emily gripped his hand tight. "Don't let her take us." David knelt down, leveling his gaze with theirs. "Listen to me. She can't. She has no power anymore. You're safe. Do you hear me? Safe." The children nodded, but fear lingered in their eyes. David stood and walked directly to Lorraine. "Leave," he said, voice steady, controlled. "You think this is over?" She hissed. "Courts can change their mind. People talk. They'll see you're unstable." David leaned in, his jaw set. "I'm not the broken man I was 3 years ago. Try anything, and I'll fight with everything Sarah ever gave me. And you know what? I'll win." For the first time, Lorraine faltered. She looked at his eyes and saw something she couldn't manipulate: strength. Real, unshakable strength. With a sharp turn, she walked away. Jacob whispered. She looked scared. David smiled faintly. "Good. She should be. Speech balloon therapy breakthrough." In therapy the next week, drive. Ramirez asked Emily to draw her feelings. She sketched a house, broken down the middle, with stick figures on each side. One was David, standing alone. The others were her and Jacob, with sad faces. Then she took a crayon and drew a line reconnecting the two halves of the house. "That's us now," she explained softly. David's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her she was the bravest person he knew, but the words stuck. Instead, he pulled her close, letting his tears say what words couldn't. "Doctor." Ramirez nodded knowingly. "Healing isn't forgetting. It's building new bridges over old cracks. And look, Emily's already building. Wave family trip, the ocean." That summer, David took the kids and Anna to the ocean. Sarah had always dreamed of taking Emily and Jacob to see the waves, but they'd never had the chance. On the shore, the children ran wild, their laughter swallowed by the roar of the sea. David stood barefoot in the sand, watching, his heart swelling with both grief and gratitude. Anna walked up beside him, her hair whipping in the wind. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, eyes never leaving the kids. "For the first time in years, yeah. I think I am." As the sun set, painting the sky in colors too beautiful to describe, David gathered Emily and Jacob close. He pulled from his jacket another letter from Sarah's shoebox, the one marked, "For the first time they see the sea." He read aloud, his voice trembling. "Children, if you are hearing this, I want you to know your mom dreamed of this day. The ocean is big and wild, but don't be afraid. It will teach you that life is vast, that even when you feel small, you are part of something endless and strong. Build sandcastles. Let them wash away. Build them again. That's life. And remember, every wave that touches your toes carries my love with it." The children clung to him, tears mixing with seawater. Even Anna wiped her eyes. For David, it was more than a letter. It was Sarah's voice carried on the wind, reminding him that though she was gone, her love would always guide them. Milky Way closing the circle. That night, back at the rented beach house, David tucked the children into bed. Jacob whispered, "Dad, do you think Mom saw us at the ocean?" David kissed his forehead. "I know she did." Emily added, "Then she's smiling right now." David smiled too, his heart at peace. Yeah, she is. He turned off the light and stepped onto the balcony where the waves thundered below. The night sky stretched endless, the stars flickering like promises. Anna joined him, standing quietly at his side. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, David said, I think we're going to be okay. Anna's voice was soft but certain. We already are. The seasons turned, and with them came the holidays that once haunted David with silence. Now, they returned carrying laughter. In October, the children begged for pumpkin carving. David spread newspapers on the kitchen floor, just like Sarah used to, and the three of them scooped slimy seeds with their hands. Emily drew a cat face, Jacob a crooked superhero. David carved a simple smiling pumpkin that looked oddly like his own grin, awkward but warm. When night fell, the pumpkins glowed on the porch. Trick-or-treaters came, and for the first time in years David opened the door to children in costumes instead of an empty night. Emily whispered, "It feels normal again." David kissed the top of her head. "It feels like life again." Turkey Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving had always been Sarah's favorite, her excuse to invite half the neighborhood and feed them until they couldn't stand. That year, David didn't think he could manage the tradition, but Anna stepped in. She arrived with bags of groceries, rolling up her sleeves. "Sarah taught me her stuffing recipe," she said, smiling. Faintly, the table filled slowly with dishes, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, turkey golden and steaming. David glanced at the empty chair at the end of the table, the one Sarah once occupied. He felt the ache, but instead of breaking him, it settled into something gentle. Before eating, Emily folded her hands. "I'm thankful for Dad, for Aunt Anna, for Jacob, and for Mom watching us." Jacob added, "I'm thankful we're home." David tried to speak but couldn't. Instead, he reached across the table and held both their hands. His silence was prayer enough. Christmas tree Christmas. Winter brought snow, and with it Christmas, the hardest of all holidays. For 3 years, David had avoided decorating, unable to bear the weight of what was missing. But now, Emily and Jacob insisted. The attic released boxes of dusty ornaments. Emily pulled out a cracked star Sarah had made in college. "This goes on top," she declared. Together, they strung lights across the tree. Jacob accidentally tangled himself in tinsel, making everyone laugh until their stomachs hurt. When the tree was lit, the living room glowed in colors that felt like hope reborn. That night, David sat with Anna on the couch, cocoa in hand, the kids sprawled asleep on the rug. The house hummed with peace. "I thought Christmas was gone forever," he whispered. Anna looked at him, her eyes soft. "Sarah wouldn't have let it be gone. She left you the pieces, you just needed to put them back." Balance scale Lorraine's last attempt. January brought one final storm. Lorraine filed an appeal, desperate to reclaim control. She stood in court again, her voice sharp, accusing David of manipulation, accusing Anna of overstepping. But this time, the children spoke. Emily, standing brave in front of the judge, said, "She lied to us. She told us our dad didn't love us. But he did. He always did. She can't take us away again." Jacob added, his voice firm, "We want to stay with Dad. This is home." The judge listened carefully, then delivered the final ruling. Full, Permanent custody to David Miller. Lorraine's rights terminated. The gavel came down like thunder, sealing the chapter forever. Lorraine's face paled. For once, she had no words. She left the courtroom silently, a shadow fading from their lives. David hugged his children tightly. "It's over," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "For real this time. Sunrise moving forward. Life began to settle into rhythm. School drop-offs, pancake Saturdays, family movie nights with popcorn too buttery, therapy sessions that turned into art projects. Anna stayed, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Slowly, her presence shifted from helper to family. She cooked dinners, helped with homework, listened when David's voice trembled with guilt. And though they never said it aloud, both knew Sarah had entrusted them to each other. One evening, after the kids were asleep, David found Anna in Sarah's old studio, staring at the empty easel. "She always meant to paint a family portrait," Anna said softly. "She never had the chance." David touched the easel gently. "Maybe we could do it together. Not with paint, with life. Every moment we live, that's the portrait." Anna smiled through her tears. "She'd like that. Wave closing scene. The safe place." Spring returned, carrying blossoms and new beginnings. On the anniversary of Sarah's passing, David took Emily and Jacob to the park where she had once loved to read under a tree. Anna came too, holding Sarah's last unopened envelope, the one marked simply, "When the time is right." They sat beneath the tree, and David unfolded the letter. "My dearest loves," it began. "If this letter is being read, then life has tested you more than I ever wanted. But if you are reading, it also means you survived. That means you kept going. And that means you found the safe place again. David, you were always the safe place. I knew it when I met you, when you made me laugh with a terrible apple joke at the farmer's market. I knew it when you held our babies for the first time, trembling but unafraid. I know it even now, wherever I am. Keep being that place. For them, for Anna, for yourself. And to my babies, live bravely, love loudly, forgive easily, build castles in the sand, even if they wash away. Because joy rebuilt is stronger than joy untouched. I will always be with you. Every laugh, every tear, every sunrise. I love you forever, Mom." By the time David finished reading, they were all crying. But the tears were no longer just grief, they were healing. Emily leaned against him. "She really was here with us, wasn't she?" David kissed her hair. "She never left." Jacob whispered, "Then we'll always be home." David wrapped his arms around them, Anna leaning close. The four of them sat beneath the tree, sunlight filtering through the branches, the wind carrying Sarah's words into the world. And in that moment, David knew the truth he had been chasing for years. They hadn't just survived, they had come alive again. The house, the children, the love, it was all the safe place. And he was finally home. Life slowly began to stitch itself back together, not in a grand, sudden way, but in the quiet, ordinary rhythms that Sarah had always loved. Mornings started with cereal bowls clinking, school shoes thudding across the hallway, and David calling out, "Backpacks, don't forget backpacks." Jacob would grumble, Emily would giggle, and Anna would smile over her coffee. Evenings carried the smell of dinners sizzling, the sound of homework pages turning, and the hum of laughter drifting through the house. The cracks of the past hadn't disappeared, but golden light poured through them, like stained glass turning pain into beauty. Face mask school play. In the spring, Emily auditioned for the school play. She came home with a script in her hands and a nervous grin. "Dad, I got the lead role." David's heart swelled. On the night of the play, he sat in the front row with Jacob bouncing in his seat beside him and Anna squeezing his hand for courage. The curtain rose, and there was Emily, tiny, radiant, her voice trembling at first but growing strong with every line. David's eyes filled as he realized she had inherited Sarah's courage, her spark. When the final bow came, Emily searched the audience until she found him. Her smile in that moment was a bridge from past to present, from grief to joy. Jacob whispered proudly, "That's my sister." David ruffled his hair. "That's our star. Birthday cake." Jacob's birthday. When Jacob's birthday arrived, David found himself nervous. Birthdays had been painful, silent reminders of the years lost. But this time, the house filled with balloons, laughter, and the scent of chocolate cake. As Jacob blew out his candles, David leaned close. "What did you wish for?" Jacob grinned. "That we never get lost again." David hugged him tightly. "That wish already came true." Speech balloon therapy breakthroughs. In therapy, David had his own turning point. Dr. Ramirez asked, "What do you fear most now that your children are back?" David hesitated, then confessed, "That I'll fail them again. That I'll miss something, and it'll all be taken away." Dr. Ramirez smiled gently. "David, you didn't fail them. You were failed. By a system, by lies, by grief too heavy to carry. What matters now is not perfection. It's presence. Be here. That's what they need. That's what you are." For the first time, David believed it. Sparkler 4th of July, summer brought fireworks. The park filled with families on picnic blankets. David, Emily, Jacob, and Anna spread theirs beneath a wide oak. When the sky lit up with bursts of color, Emily leaned against her father. "Mom would have loved this," she whispered. "She's watching with us," David replied softly. As the finale exploded in gold and red, Jacob shouted, "This one's for Mom." And for a moment, the sky itself seemed to honor her. Graduation flash forward. Years passed. Emily grew taller, Jacob stronger. The house remained filled with warmth, its walls now decorated with school photos, report cards, and goofy drawings. One summer evening, David stood in a gymnasium, watching Emily walk across the stage in her graduation gown. She accepted her diploma, turned toward the audience, and spotted him. Her smile mirrored Sarah's, the same glow, the same pride. David's vision blurred. He clapped until his hands stung, Jacob beside him cheering wildly. Afterward, Emily handed him the diploma. "This isn't just mine," she said softly. "It's yours. You carried me here." David shook his head, voice trembling. "No, sweetheart. You carried me. Milky Way closing legacy." That night, back at home, David sat with Emily, Jacob, and Anna in the living room. The shoebox of Sarah's letters still rested on the mantel, its corners worn but its spirit alive. He opened it one last time, holding up the final envelope he had saved for this moment. On the front, Sarah had written, "For the day our babies take flight." He read aloud, "My loves, if you're reading this, you are no longer little. You've grown, and so has your father. I knew you would. I am proud beyond words. Go into the world with courage. Love as big as the sky. Carry kindness like a lantern. And remember, no matter how far you fly, you always have a safe place to come home to." Tears streamed down every face in the room. Emily hugged her father. Jacob whispered, "We'll never forget." David looked at Anna, at the children, at the home that had been broken and rebuilt, and felt Sarah's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. For the first time in years, he didn't just survive the night, he welcomed tomorrow. Because love had outlived loss. Because home was no longer empty. Because Sarah's legacy lived on in every laugh, every hug, every new beginning. And David knew, this was not just survival. This was life.